Courtney has a special place in my heart. She's been an incredible client, but also I don't want to say a better friend, but like also a friend at a very high level. Both very high level. I feel like there's a statement like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, and Courtney is definitely that type of person, not to half-ass anything whatsoever. And yes, we will get into fat loss. Yes, we will get into some of the methods that her and I used for her prep, but also I want to learn a little bit more about the person and kind of interview her so that you guys can get to know her as a person. So let's start with resiliency. Currently, are you in a relationship, Courtney?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And did your first relationship work out?
No.
Oh,
Should I say thank goodness no, but
no. Sometimes you don't know until you know. I think that my point here is I know a little bit about Courtney's backstory. You were married before.
yes. Yep.
How did that go?
Not great. Hence why I'm not anymore.
Back to resiliency. Like maybe something doesn't work the first time. And maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a diet, maybe it's a job, whatever it is. And so Courtney went as far as getting married, and that didn't work. And now she's met someone halfway across the world and gone to visit them a few times. And so my whole point here is just because it didn't work doesn't mean you got to stop trying. And I remember Courtney and I talked for a while, and she's like, "Well, I don't know when I'm going to find somebody," because she had elevated her standards, which we should all do. And I just want to say I'm really proud of you for waiting
Thank
until you found a good one. Um, all right, so just a little bit of random backstory.
you.
So for you, you've been vegan for a long time. I
Not as long as you, not as long as you, but a long time, yes.
over a decade, still a very long time. But however, though, you kind of started, I would say, in maybe a less vegan friendly area of the world. Did we already say exactly where you're from?
No, I don't think so. I'm from a super small town. Like, I'm talking the hometown that I grew up in did not have a stoplight growing up. So, very small.
Who else did not have a stoplight growing up? Not me. So, all right. Let's uh let's dive into you and your goals. Like why obviously we have to lose fat to get on stage, but why did you want to get on stage?
Yeah, I think that it was just one of those things where I had had a few people kind of talk to me about, oh, have you ever thought about competing? Oh, you should compete. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, never. Which is interesting because I kind of feel like that is how I have answered a lot of things throughout my life. Because I remember when I was vegetarian, I remember saying, I'll never be one of those vegan people, you know, and then it's like you do more research and then you realize things and you ultimately arrive at the place that you should be at, right? So talking about like resilience and your evolution of change, and so I think that when I first, when people first kind of started talking about it, I was just like, oh, I would love to do that, but I could never. And then, you work out a little bit more and you start having conversations where you're like, maybe I could. And interestingly enough, I was at the time dating someone and we had both kind of talked about competing, and then that relationship ended and I was like, you know what, like I'm still gonna do that because, and I listened to your podcast actually when Greta was on it, and she was talking about how she kind of had been in the same situation where her and her partner were going to compete and then they broke up, and she was like, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. And then I just realized that it was something that I could do if I wanted to.
100%. And you did. Um, was it harder than you thought it would be?
It's interesting because I feel like prep is the environment kind of which I thrive. So it was
Mm.
difficult in the sense of I had to learn a lot more about my body and I had to well, we had to work on variables a lot more than I thought, because I kind of thought it was, oh, well, you just do this and this and then your body reacts. And everybody's body's different, right? And it's interesting too, because I also had to learn how to be a client, which is much different than being a coach. And so I that was something that was difficult for me, kind of like the doctors or nurses make the worst patients. I feel like sometimes the coaches make the worst clients, because it's like, I know the things that I'm asking you, I know the answer to already, but I just need to hear it from you. And so I think that it was interesting because it the whole process wasn't as difficult as I thought, but there were more difficult things. I guess maybe the things that I thought were going to be difficult weren't, and then the things that I didn't expect to be so difficult were. Like, I mean, I got my routine down. I had, John knows that I had my system down where I would make a protein ice cream in my Ninja Creamy with my electrolytes and would sit in the bathtub every single night. That's just what I did. And so yeah, I think it was a lot of learning and being surprised by the things that I thought wouldn't be difficult were.
Yeah. I think competing is its own beast in and of itself, but then it's also after the stage. That's also a hard part for a lot of people, myself included. Um, I want to slow down and kind of talk about some of the things that we did in prep, things that people might hear be able to take away, because bodybuilding is like almost the extreme end of fat loss. There's like being healthy, getting in shape, getting lean, getting really lean, going to a photo shoot, getting on stage lean. It's like as far crazy as you can be. So I think it was cool that you were able to find some things you enjoyed, like having that Ninja Creamy to look forward to each night. And then we just tried to play with meals to find ways to get the macros in line, but also find the digestion. So I'm trying to remember some of the things that you would do. You probably remember your foods better than I do. What were you eating mostly in prep?
Yeah, I think that well, spinach, so yogurt, I make my own yogurt, which was big, especially like for the fat loss component, because a lot of the store-bought yogurts, especially where I live, because I don't have a wide variety. I mean, you cannot find Greek vegan yogurt anywhere where I live. And most of the yogurt, very little of it is like soy based. And so a lot of it is that higher fat with a bunch of added sugar to it. And so I make my own yogurt, and then I was doing a salad, and then the one bean pasta with nutritional yeast on it, and then say grace, green beans. I make my own protein rolls too. And so food was pretty easy, but I will say that one thing that helped me a ton with eating the same foods was to change up the way in which I ate those foods. So, you give me my meal plan of, okay, here's spinach, here's, your protein rolls, here's your cucumbers. Sometimes I would have a salad. Other days I would make a smoothie with my protein powder and my spinach, instead of, putting all of my protein powder in my yogurt in the morning. And for me, that made it feel like a different meal plan, and made it feel like a different food, even though it was the exact same measurements on the same days, but it was just would put it together in a different way. And that helped me a lot. And I think that that's something that's really important when you're trying to lose fat, is to, if you are, sticking to the same thing every single day, it doesn't mean that you have to have the exact same thing in the exact same way every day. And that was something that helped me a lot.
That is a huge tip. To build, like, it builds variety in what you feel like you're doing, but it keeps consistency with what your body's actually receiving. And then this is higher level bodybuilding stuff that might not apply to every person, but I think it's a really good tip here if somebody wants some variability within their meal plan. Um, as far as your routine, I also think it's important noting um, just how resilient you are as an individual, because you worked a full-time job while you were competing.
Yeah, so looking back on it now, I'm not exactly sure how I did it. But I was working about 12 to 15 hours Monday through Thursday, and then working 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours on Friday. Saturday and Sunday, I did have off from my full-time job. So I have a full-time job, and then I also have my training on the side too. So have a few jobs that I was balancing, and so in the really close to prep where I was spending, 3 to 3.5 hours at the gym, my days were long. But again, that is also why a routine was so helpful for me, because I knew that, whether I was getting home at 7:30 or whether I was getting home at 9:30 or 10, I would get home, I would eat my meals that I had prepped already. I would make my ice cream, I would make my electrolytes, I would get into the bathtub, and then, like, just be able to like chill and decompress and kind of reset. And so routine was really, really helpful in getting me through the prep for sure.
Yeah. I was like midway through prep with Courtney when I realized that she didn't just train clients at the gym and also train clients online. She also had a full-time 40-hour week job on top of that. And I was like, okay, you're a little bit crazy, but we're gonna still just I kind of kept it under wraps. Like I was freaking out. I was like, this is too much, but didn't want to let her know that I was freaking out. So I kind of kept that part to myself. Um, well, I wanna drop into like where you are. I'm a little bit all over the place here. I don't have a script for this one. I'm just hanging out
Yeah.
with me. But all right, let's like wheel this way back. How was it going vegan being in this one stoplight town? Um, yeah, did you find other vegan friends nearby, or did you do it online, or did you just be like me and have nobody?
Yeah, it was interesting because when I first became vegetarian, I lived in Fort Collins, Colorado. I was working after I got my master's degree, and Fort Collins is a big town, and so there were lots of options. So then whenever I moved home, I was still vegetarian, but the it was way different. Like at that point, I was driving the 3 hours to either St. Louis, Missouri, or Indianapolis, Indiana, or Louisville, Kentucky, to go to Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. And I would basically do that every like 2-ish months, and just stock up on everything I could, because really the only thing at that point that I could get at my local grocery store was tofu, which at that point I didn't love because I was a level 1 level 3 vegetarian, level 0 vegan. And so then whenever I kind of did veganism for a little while during the week, and then vegetarian on the weekends, and then decided, like, again, I got more knowledge, and then decided to become vegan. So I didn't know anyone who was vegan at all. Most people didn't even really understand vegetarianism. And so I was pretty much on my own. Online helped a ton, and that was, I'm not great with math, but that was a long time ago. And so I definitely had connections via Facebook. I don't know if Instagram was a thing back then, or if I had it. I don't think it was. I think it was just Facebook at that point. But that was huge for me. And having that online community that I could feel like I wasn't such an outcast, right? Because I had these people who, there are other people in the world. They might not be physically close to me, but there are other people who, and who feel the way that I do, who believe in the same things that I do. And it's interesting because that kind of keeps happening. So it actually just recently recently happened. I, posted something on Instagram, and I have now had this, these connections with these people who I'm like, oh wow, there are like even more people who are vegan and who believe in the same things that I do, and I didn't even know them. And so it's just, the online community was huge for me then, and it always, it shouldn't surprise me, right? But it always continuously surprises me that like I just keep meeting more and more people. Because full disclosure, I do still live in the small town that I lived in whenever I became vegan. And so, yeah, I think that I didn't have anyone here, but that online community is just so, so important. Which, I mean, right now it's so important.
Yeah, I mean, we get to see each other every now and then, but we might make sure to stay in touch. I think having those other people around you is, whether they're online or in person, is extremely important for like our long-term success. I feel like I can't even imagine what it would be like to go back to not having vegan friends to count on and hang out with and talk with. I think it would make doing this much, much more difficult. And we have some relatively new vegans in the room right now, and I just want to say, you guys, like, you're a little bit in some ways lucky because we're able to share all of this with you. So at least for me, it took me almost 20 years to find y'all here. So I'm very grateful to have this now and to have it be a little bit easier for the next generation. I also think if you're like Courtney in a smaller town, or really just even in your own smaller circle, it's a little bit of pressure, but it's also a more impactful way to be vegan when you're the only vegan that your family knows, when you're the only vegan that your friend group has, when you're the only vegan at your job, then you get to be that face. You get to be the face of veganism. So when people think of vegan, they don't think of, the stereotypical skinny goth emo kid or something like that, like some stereotype that's just clearly not true, just based on who's all on this call. But it allows you to represent veganism on a bigger scale, even if it's just with the people around you. So just things that, if you guys here don't have a ton of vegan friends in person, it's something that you can remember. So I want to talk about a bunch of things. I'm trying to like get my thoughts in order. Um, so let's talk about like pre-bodybuilding. Did you feel like because you were vegan before bodybuilder, did you feel like it was harder to get leaner prior to like competing or things like that? Or like for you on your specific journey, did you hold more fat than you wanted to, or like where were you at there?
Yeah, I don't know that veganism ever kind of came to my mind with that, and only because I didn't really start getting into fitness until closer to when I became vegan. So I think that, like for me, it was just, oh, well, I know I'm going to do this vegan. I will say, however, I knew that I wanted a vegan coach. I absolutely knew that I did not want someone who didn't understand that, because, you know, there are so many people who don't think that you can compete being vegan, or the amount of people who have told me, oh, well, it'd be so much easier if you weren't vegan, or oh wow. And I think that's what's really cool though, is like the conversation is starting to change. And so the amount of people that I had specifically at my show that were like, oh, congratulations, like you look great, and then they found out I was vegan, and then like the next time I came back down backstage, everyone was like, and you're vegan? Oh my gosh, like that's so impressive. And it's just funny to me because I think, like, I mean, I personally think that veganism is the healthiest, way of eating that you can have for your body, for your energy. And so I think that it's interesting when people say that it's more difficult, to bodybuild, when I think you're actually doing what's best for your body. So, did I answer your question? I think I did, but maybe
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, you got it. And I think what I try to tell people is, they're like, well, it's harder for me to go vegan and be a bodybuilder for XYZ reason, but like really, I think The only reason it's harder right now is just because there's a little bit less knowledge. There's less people that have done it. And I don't think it's hard at all. Like I think if we were all raised vegan and knew all these different food sources that we've taken 20 years or less to figure out, then it would have been an easier route. And then at that point, like there are so many foods that vegans can eat. There's so many options out there. I mean, there were a lot of options 20 years ago from a whole foods plant-based perspective. There's way more species of edible plants than edible animals. But now with all the substitutes, there's a ton. So I think that that's somewhere we could kind of shift to and be like, because you are a bit, we really need to get you to do like a cooking demo because you've come up with some really, really cool recipes. So let's talk. I'm just going to bring up the one that we got to eat at the vegan house when last year we all hung out. You would make the seitan protein rolls. So let's share your secret with the people here.
Yeah. This is something that I was making prior to prep, and I was really like, I really want to keep this in because I love bread. I love bread. And these protein rolls are, you get to have bread every single day. So it's really, really easy. It's 1 cup of vital wheat gluten and then 1 scoop of protein. So you can use, obviously I think veg is the best. And I really do like with the consistency too. I will say though that I do use an unflavored one whenever I make like savory protein rolls. And then you put like a little bit of baking powder, a little bit of baking soda, like a teaspoon-ish each. And then whatever kind of mix-ins you want, um, you can do like a cup-ish of any type of fruit. Lots of different flavor combinations that I've made before. And then just do water about 1 cup to 1.5 cups. You want it to be kind of a good consistency, not too sticky. And then that makes 8 rolls. They're about 100 calories a piece, depending on what all you put in it, and about 15 grams of protein. So they make great buns, like for sandwiches. One of my favorite things actually that I would do when I talked about changing up my meals is sometimes I would make savory protein rolls and then cut them in half and then put my Say Grace with my sugar-free Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce because it's the best, and make like little sliders, kind of like sandwiches. And so I would be like, "Ooh, I have sliders today," instead of like a regular meal. And they're the best. And the thing that I love the most about them is they're super, like I travel a lot. And so I will pack those when I travel. That is something that I will pack flour for. So I actually made protein rolls. I was just in Morocco and I made protein rolls in Morocco. And so I had them for every day. And so it's really nice because, you can pack the flour, I'm already taking my protein. I didn't pack baking soda or baking powder, but that's something you can usually find. I mean, even in a grocery store, in Morocco, I found baking soda and baking powder. And yeah, then I just would buy whatever type of fruit I wanted. And they're a huge game changer for me, because I still feel like I'm eating, bread. I get that kind of, like sometimes I will eat it and like cut it in half and use sugar-free like maple syrup. So I kind of eat it like a pancake. Sometimes I use it as a bun. Sometimes I just eat them. Sometimes I put almond butter in them. And so they're super versatile. You can change up the flavors too, which is nice because it's like during prep, I basically ate blueberry ones the whole time because that's what fruit I had. But now I make them with different types of fruit and change it up. And when I was in the vegan, the vegan squad house, I got to try a lot of different recipes. So I make some now where I put yogurt in them, and they're almost like a turnover Danish, which is really good. And at some
Yeah.
point, I'm gonna make a cookbook at some point.
We gotta have you make a cookbook. Has anybody else tried? I'm curious, like, because These are some of the newer things I've found, at least on my vegan journey. Have you tried using Vital Wheat gluten with some protein powder and then various fruits or other mix-ins to make like a vegan high protein dessert? I'm just curious to see if this is new for people or not. And I'm gonna try and remember some of my favorite ones. The banana ones are always good. I think you did like a peanut butter banana one. The s'mores. That was
Oh,
like, yeah, Alex is
yeah.
nodding because those were so good. Um, what else did we? I think you did a strawberry one. We would get sometimes the sugar-free, like apple or cherry mix at Walmart
Oh,
and put
yeah.
those in. Yeah, Melissa said the cherry
Oh, cherry
cheesecake.
cheesecake.
Yeah, I'm gonna get
The
hungry
pumpkin
here.
ones were one of my favorite too.
Ooh,
Yeah, because it was almost like a pumpkin pie-ish middle. Oh, those were really good too. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, even keeping calories low and on a high protein vegan diet, you can still have a lot of fun. Um,
And that's one thing too that, I'm sure that a lot of you have probably encountered this. You're on Instagram and you see something that says like high protein. And when you go into the actual recipe, maybe it has high protein, but it's usually super high in calories, super high in fat or carbs or both. And that's one thing that I love about these protein rolls is that it's truly when you're looking for a high protein option, it's actually high protein, meaning that protein is going to be the highest thing out of all of the macros, right? Because that's one thing that as a coach, I hear a lot, or people will say, "Oh, well, I'm eating this high protein, but really it's higher in fat and carbs than it is in protein." And so when you look at that, that's something that's really, yeah, exactly. Yes, Melissa, agreed.
Allie was downloading some recipes the other night and like looked at it and she's like, "There's no way this is actually high protein." And I like plugged it into my fitness pal. It was like 8 grams of protein for like 400 calories. I was like, "Yeah, that's that's not gonna work." A lot of people don't realize. I think it's becoming more well known now, but beans, for example, like have some protein, but they have more carbs than they do protein. And then like peanut butter, people use when I was growing up, people are like, oh, eat peanut butter to get your protein. It's like peanut butter has more grams of fat and way more calories of fat than protein. So yes, it has some protein. It would count towards your daily total, but it's not going to really put a big dent if you're trying to be on a higher protein diet. Um, I want to talk a little bit about what you stand for. You mentioned it a little bit. Well, well, we'll jump in right here. Ali just commented that she made some lentil cookies the other night, and I only ate like 8 of them, but um, even the one I wasn't supposed to. But they were really good. So we've got new ideas coming your way, guys. I think that's the whole point here of Vegan Squad, of these calls, these meetings, is to continue sharing knowledge and proof. Courtney is the proof that you can be vegan and you can make a real change, and also be going back into what I was about to get into, be an activist, being on stage, putting that out there, showing people that vegans can look great and perform great. That's one of the best ways for us to be activists. Beyond that, I think you do a great job wearing different styles of clothing. I'll let you say, I've seen a lot of them, but off the top of your head, like you have shirts that promote what? Like what do you share in the gym?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Change clothing brand is probably my favorite. They are a little higher end, a little bit more expensive, but their mission is fantastic. And I'm not sponsored by them. But I just like that's where a lot of like the shirts that I get come from. But yeah, I think one of my favorite ones that I wear is it says, oh, now okay. It says something like, only respecting women that you find attractive is not respecting women. And I think that that's one of my favorites that I wear. I get a lot of like, um, it's funny because people like stop and then read it and then like they come back to it. I also have, like, sorry, I don't date misogynists. I wear a lot of vegan apparel too, because I think, and that's where, I spent some time with the vegan squad, and one thing that I loved was how often people had conversations about veganism when we were in the gym and had like, vegans on our shirt. And it's funny because I have a tattoo, but it doesn't generate the conversations that I wish that it would. And so I kind of, go back and forth a little bit between like always wanting to wear vegan stuff because I love those conversations, but then also knowing that I want to support all of these other things too. So I try to wear something that shares a message, no matter what that message might be, anytime I'm at the gym, because that for me is really important. Sometimes I wear a Harry Potter shirt though, because I'm a Potterhead too. But yeah, I think some of my favorite. No one is illegal on stolen land. That's one of my favorite shirts too that I wear. Menstruation over misogyny, normalize menstruation over misogyny, is another one that I really like too. So yeah.
Yeah. I think Courtney is a champion for any any group that's ever been like marginalized or um pushed down or excluded. I think it's interesting because like I do believe a lot of people think that vegans in general are like exclusionary people, like, oh, you can't come here because you're not vegan. But really, I think we're trying to make a place for everyone, whether you're a woman or a different race or different gender. I guess I already said that. Or really just anyone that's been discriminated against. You always stand up for. And I see all her training footage. She's always wearing a shirt. So it makes me proud and happy to see that because then we got somebody walking around showing that off. Where to go now? If anybody has any questions and wants to either come off or type them in the chat, feel free to. I want to ask a question while you guys are thinking. Does anyone here Bulgarian split squat? Courtney's laughing because I know where this is going. It's probably like the most painful leg day or any day movement possible. Most people, or at least myself, don't exactly enjoy doing them, but I would actually love people that don't know to take a guess in the chat what you think Courtney's split squat, her best set ever, because it's worth mentioning. All right, everybody, come on, guess in pounds. We use pounds, not kilograms, because we're backwards in the United States. Um,
Which is a struggle when I travel, because then I have to be like, wait, I have to get my converter out and then try to figure out like which weight, because they're not exact. And yeah.
and then anybody else, if you guys have questions. All right. Well, while everybody's furiously guessing away, I'm just gonna say what it is. You've worked up to 95s, or did we do hundreds?
95s. We're not
95.
at hundreds yet. But I think that with a rep count at 95, I could probably at least do 100s. But yeah.
I would love to see anyone else try and hold 100 pounds in each hand and do even one rep. One rep would be incredible. That's a lot of weight. That is insane, dude. Very, very, very cool stuff. Um, yeah, okay. Bobby's actually got a really good question here. Courtney, you mentioned training for like 3 hours. Where did you start with training?
Yeah, so the 3 hours was when I was, almost like when I was in the deep, deep of prep. And so whenever prior to starting my prep, I was probably in the gym for about an hour for just my lifts. And so that's kind of when I started. As far as like when I started bodybuilding, I started bodybuilding in about 2016. So I did CrossFit for a few years, and then got into like what I would call bodybuilding, but not like stage prep bodybuilding. I didn't start my prep for my bodybuilding show until 2024. So, yeah, Bobby, I hope that answered your question.
And then Allie has one for you. Are you planning to compete again?
Yeah. It's funny because when I kind of first did my show, I was like, yeah, I don't know that I ever want to do this again. But it wasn't because of prep. I loved prep. I like was thriving in prep. It was actually the show aspect of it, and not for what people might think. I did the Nashville Fit Show, and it's an all woman show, or all women show, and I have never the backstage of that show actually makes me want to compete again because it was like the most supportive, just inspiring. I mean, I was backstage and I was like, I love every single person back here and I want to do this forever because this is such a cool environment. Um, I did not love getting my makeup done. I did not love getting my hair done. I don't wear makeup any other time, which I will say that my makeup artist was phenomenal and I looked amazing, which makes me want to learn how to do makeup. But that's the part that I didn't enjoy. So like, I mean, I liked being on stage. It was fine. I didn't have any anxiety or anything like that. I don't wear heels often, but I felt comfortable in heels. So I mean, I want to do another show for sure, but it's weird because I kind of like, I want to do the whole prep up until the show, but then like not do the show, which I know doesn't make any sense, but that's kind of, that's how I feel about the show, which there are other people who are like, I live to be on stage and, that's just not me, but I would love to do another show. Yes, I do think that I finally like came to the idea that like, yes, I do think that I want to compete again.
Aw. Well, then we have our work cut out for us yet again.
I was gonna say that's the
Um,
first time you're hearing that, John. So yeah, I think I want to compete again.
um, I mean, it's a lot. It's extremes. Like you get so locked in. I feel like for me, I've made a lot of really hard life decisions in a prep. Not that you really should make a major life decision, but it's like you have no time for any bullshit that you don't need in your life. You find a way to make some room. Um, Alex has a question here, because Courtney is a coach herself, both in person and online. What do you love most about being a coach?
Hmm. I think for me, it's um it's honestly when my clients don't need me anymore. That is actually one thing I love. Oh, and I think I love it because I have so many clients who will like go out on their own, keep working, keep grinding, and then they'll come back to me and be like, "All right, I'm ready to level up. Like I'm going to hire you again for a short amount of time to like level me up." And I think that that is like the coolest feeling when you have inspired someone to do it on their own, right? Because it's really easy when your clients have to show up, when they have to respond to you, when they have to be like, oh, I know Courtney's going to see this, so I better make sure, like I get this workout in, or I have to make sure that I check in with her. But knowing that you've changed someone's life to where their lifestyle has changed and they're in the gym on their own when they could be doing anything else. And I think for me, like that's the best part of coaching is like truly changing someone's life. Yeah.
From a business perspective, we're gonna have to change that. You're gonna have to make it very confusing so they feel like they can't do
I
it on their
know,
own. They have
right?
to stay with you
Yeah.
forever. No. Aw. I agree. I think it's really cool to watch your client basically graduate into learning how to coach themselves. I think that's why it's important why we slow things down, explain why we do things, and not just be, oh, because I said so. Um, I have a question for you. It has nothing to do with anything that we've really talked about tonight. And this is actually personally just for me, and everybody else can listen, but you are, and I'm literally just talking to you, Courtney. You are one of the most happy and positive, at least on the outside, and encouraging people I've ever met. You're almost like like a fire. Like if you get too close to a fire, like it starts to get a little bit hotter than you want. Like your energy is just exceptional. And so I want to ask because you have a lot of causes that are like near and dear to your heart and things that are 100% worth fighting for, such as for animals or for people that are discriminated against. But I feel like for me, sometimes I get so deep in thinking about who I want to, help or protect or speak up for, and I kind of get into what feels like a little bit of a dark place. So I'm just curious how you're always talking about these things, you're always promoting them, you're always fighting for the people that need and the animals that need us to fight for them. How do you stay like you throughout all this?
Well, first of all, thank you. It makes me want to cry. And yeah, I think therapy, honestly. Like, I mean, truly like taking care of my mental health and having someone, and I think it goes back to that idea of like, there's so many people who are like, well, why are you hiring a coach if you're a coach? Well, because I don't have the expertise there, right? Like, and I know that, and that's, John talked about you all here, right? You could find all of this information anywhere else, right? But we're giving it to you in this package where you don't have to sit there and search and look for it. And that's what I wanted from my, competition coach. Was I wanted someone who was going to be able to tell me this, explain it, and I didn't have to do it on my own. And I think that that's kind of with therapy, it was the same thing. Like, I had these things that I wanted to work on. I wanted to do self work, but I didn't know. I wanted that package kind of given to me instead of me having to try to navigate through everything. And so I spend a lot of time doing self work, and I do my homework in therapy. And I think too that sometimes it does get really heavy, and sometimes it does get really difficult. And I go through periods where I just feel, yeah, it just feels heavy. But then I just try to remember that I have the option. It's reframing, right? I have the ability to be that voice. I have the ability to have these conversations. And I think that that's what's so important, is to just remember that it's it's not that I have to do these things, right? It's that like I get the opportunity to do these things. And so a lot of times when I am feeling kind of down or feeling like just overwhelmed with things, I have to take a step back and say like, I get to do all of these things. Just like, I've seen it a lot on social media where people talk about, like when you don't feel motivated to go to the gym, right? Try to reframe it and be like, I get to go to the gym today, and I get to go. I have the money that I can pay for my membership. I have the ability to, have this intra workout that I drink. I can fuel myself enough to build muscle. I can push myself because my body is in good enough health to do that. And so I think reframing is something that helps me a lot. Yes, yes.
Thank you. I have been practicing gratitude. I think that for me is the fastest way to snap myself out of it. The sharing my own ways. I either play worst case scenario, like, okay, you're driving and you're really upset about something going on in the world, and it's like you have this reality, or you have the reality where a semi truck comes out of nowhere and you lose all your arms and your legs, and then you're blind. And when you think about it like that, even if you're going through some heavy shit right now, at least I have my arms and my legs and my eyes. That
Right.
that's one way that I'll kind of flip myself around, or I'll just start listing things I'm grateful for. I've been, Alex, you need to make a post today. I am surrounded by untrained therapists, if you will. I spent some time with you, Courtney. You've been a huge help, but I spent a lot of time with Alex here, and he has convinced me to not be on my phone the first 10 or 15 minutes of the day. So my alarm goes off to get out of bed. I hit snooze and I wait for it to go again about 9 minutes later, and then I'll hit it one more time. And then usually 15 minutes will have passed and I allow myself to go on my phone. But I'll practice gratitude in those moments, just even being grateful that I have sheets on my bed, like that, like whatever it is, that there's air to be breathed. But I will say, it might be worth for me to get some professional help. I mean, I've hired a therapist and a coach sound pretty similar. I've hired coaches for bodybuilding. I've hired coaches for relationships. I've hired coaches for finances. I've hired coaches for business. So it would make sense to hire a coach for my mental health. And I will give from the people that I can see on this screen. If I forget or miss one, please don't hate me. But Alex, Miranda, Maya, Samara, Allie, Ashley, Melissa, Jordan, all of you executive team members on the Vegan Squad team, you've been my untrained therapist for a while now, and I don't think I'd want to do this without you guys. So thank you all for being here. That concludes my questions, Courtney. Anybody else that has questions for Courtney, if she has a couple more minutes, please drop them in or feel free to come off mute. But I'm gonna stop running my mouth and let anybody else talk that wants to.
And I will say too, that I do travel a lot. So if anybody has questions about traveling, and because I kind of think, which if anybody has anything, just jump in and interrupt me. So if you do have a question, jump in and interrupt me. But I think that that is one place where I have found a bit of a gap, in bodybuilding and veganism, is traveling and being able to find protein sources. I think that, now even when you go into rural areas or, places where you might not necessarily think you can find vegan options, I think we can. I think it's pretty easy. Obviously I have some experience kind of traveling in some of those places, and so maybe I know what to look for. And if you don't, then reach out to me. But I do definitely think that hitting protein goals while traveling is something where we could still make a big something move or advancements, I guess. Yeah.
I'm starting to see more of like the RTDs, the ready to drinks. Like we got own ones. What others? The Koya brand and the Lean Body. They're starting to come out with more, but I mean that's really just a protein shake in a bottle. But I think it'll continue to get better the more that we promote it. We do have one more question that you can answer, Courtney. I'm sure other people could. Patty asked, "What is?" It's actually Say Grace, SAY, the Say Grace that you talked about in your meal plan.
Yeah, so it is a dehydrated soy product, and honestly, like that is one of my biggest travel hacks. It I have been to multiple continents and countries with Say Grace in my bag, because it travels really easy. It's super all you need is boiling water. So you don't even have to have like a stove, which I typically, when I travel, I try to get Airbnb so that I have a kitchen. But you don't have to. You can just have a microwave. You could have just hot water most places. Even if you like go to a restaurant, you can ask for like a cup of hot water and you can put Say Grace into it and then put it into your meal. So it's definitely, I would say, if you're not using it, I would definitely order some. They have like trial packs that you can get smaller packages of. But it's a game changer, not only just in day to day, but especially when traveling too. But I eat it every day. John actually introduced it to me, and now I order 5 gallon or 5 pound bags at a time.
Good stuff. I mean, you have to cook it. You have to know how to cook because it's a very lean protein. It's almost like if you came from the non-vegan world, like eating like a 3% turkey or something like that, like a 97 lean turkey. Like it's very, very lean. But good for bodybuilding and good for me. I got a rice cooker full of it right here, so I'm gonna eat some of that after this call. Ashley asked probably our last question before we take a little break. How many places have you traveled and what makes you want to travel?
Oh, I don't know how many places I've traveled to. I do have an app that says like how many I keep track of. I want to say maybe it's like 13 countries or something like that. I just got another continent when I went to Africa. I have not been to South America yet, but what makes me want to travel? Um, I think just seeing the world. The world is a really big place, and there are really beautiful people and really beautiful places and really amazing stories that you have to experience that you haven't experienced yet. And so I think that for me, I know that there's a lot more than where I am and who I'm with and what I'm surrounded by. And I just want to see it and experience it.
Right. Oh, and last one. Most vegan friendly place that you've traveled to.
Oh, that one's so difficult. I mean, really any city, honestly, any city. New York, LA, Chicago, all fantastic. I would say that the most surprising place is Houston, Texas. A phenomenal vegan food scene. So if you have not been to Houston, you could spend a month in Houston and not even eat at all of the vegan places. So that's probably my most surprising is Houston, Texas. Phenomenal. And if anybody has any questions or like wants to know anything, like message me. I'm always open to chat veganism.
Yeah, we dropped her handle in the chat if you guys want to give her a follow.
Perfect.
Um, yeah. All right. Alex, do we have like an intermission set up? Yeah. Okay. Courtney, thank you so much. You rock, dude.
So
You've been one of the most influential people in my life, and I hope that we get to hang out again soon. I know you're all over the place and possibly moving, but we'll have another Vegan Squad house sometime soon. I think we're
yeah.
gonna have a bigger one. Actually, I'm gonna ask everybody here before intermission, if there was a live in-person Vegan Squad meetup, either for a few days or for a week, would people be open if we give enough advance notice? Would people be open and willing to travel to that? Most likely within the United States. All right, we got a few yeses already. Okay, all right, cool deal.
Cool.
I
Yeah.
think that we need to make it happen this year. It's been something on my mind for a while, and we're gonna try and work on some dates. So, all
Awesome.
right,
We
you
have
guys rock.
Sergio raise his hand. He went away.
Oh,
He might have been raising it to travel. I don't know. We'll see.
yeah.
True, true. All right, that makes sense. Cool. Thank you so much for coming on, Courtney. It was awesome hearing more about your journey. Thank you for sharing everything you shared with the protein rolls and meal hacks and just being you, just being the best coach ever. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing, how impactful hiring a therapist or a coach really is and how life transformative it can be of seeing yourself and allowing yourself to process the things that come up in life. And yeah, just very grateful to have you part of the Vegan Squad and as one of our besties and coaches on the team. And yeah, you're just awesome. And I'm very excited for you to compete in your next show. Keep showing people that, vegans are strong and thrive. And yeah, I just really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I love you all so much.
Love
And
you.
so everyone new, I'm so excited to meet you and have you in the Vegan Squad because it's the best community ever. Best
For real.
community ever. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hell yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
I'm gonna stop recording.
Bye, Courtney.